And first, I'd like to introduce John. John Kostovsky, Product Manager, identified DocuSign, a very, very valued partner in the program as well. Welcome, John. A little bit of an intro from yourself, if you could, please.
Yeah, thanks, Daniel. So as Daniel said, my name's John. I am a product manager at DocuSign, focusing specifically on delivering identity verification solutions, all types of agreements online, as well as digital signatures in Europe and around the world. So yeah, been at DocuSign for 3.5 years now, focusing on Europe and North America, but have a very strong background in the financial services industry and delivering KYC solutions. So yeah, thanks, Daniel.
Thank you, John. That's going to be interesting to dive into further on. We much appreciate DocuSign's continued support, not only of events such as this, but also within the program and the employer project as well. It always gives me a great joy to introduce Tracy, one of our esteemed career coaches, leading many career outcomes for the learners on the Career Accelerator. Tracy, welcome. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you, DC. Yes. Just to introduce myself, I'm a career coach here at Fourth Rev, so I support the learners, helping them get clarity in terms of what their brand is, their strength, their skills, but also the direction of travel, what sort of career they're looking for, why they want that sort of career, so that they can then articulate that in the marketplace, and also hopefully give them the confidence to get there, particularly perhaps if you're changing careers. Working with a coach, understanding all those transferable skills really helps you get the career that you really love.
And it gives us so much joy to hear those career outcomes on a very regular basis. Tracy, it also must give you a great deal of job satisfaction in contributing to that as well. Thank you ever so kindly. Last but not least, certainly, Pip Patop, welcome. And thank you also, if I could get an introduction or an overview of your background, as well as a quick overview of the masterclass that you're offering as well, which we very much appreciate.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Pippa Top. I've worked in product management now for over 15 years. And whilst I've always loved product management and all things product management, I also have found it marries really nicely with my other passions of behavioural psychology and leadership. So what I've been really lucky enough to do and move into now is work as a consultant, a coach, and also do sort of fractional and interim product leadership roles. So I basically get to have a finger in every pie, which is very lucky, really. About the masterclass, so I hope some of you will be able to join me. I last year spoke at a product conference called Mind the Product. Recommend people check it out. About something I call Pockets of Brilliance, which is really trying to address for everybody who is trying to get into product or practicing product at whatever level, that regardless of the context you find yourself in, the type of company, how much space and autonomy you might have, there are always ways to create these little pockets of brilliance with your own personal development. And so what I'm hoping to achieve in this masterclass is equip you with some tools that you can help navigate your career with, and hopefully you can create your own pockets of brilliance.
That's worth some emojis from the audience, I feel, and as busy as you, we always like that level of engagement with so many. Thank you all, and thank you, Pippa. Adapting to diverse work environments, a lot of our product management learners are actually career changers, almost 70%, interestingly. So we have 3 types of customers. We have some career starters, but the majority are career changers or career advancers, those already in product looking to accelerate their career and fill some gaps. But within the field of product management, we're also seeing individuals having to navigate dynamic shifts, transitioning between startups and corporates, pivoting across industries or evolving in roles. Pippa, you've done a lot of that work on this in particular, and I'm sure you'd agree that the adaptability and pivotal to thriving in the realm of product. Can you take us through your work background in product management and discuss the types of environments you've worked in, from industry and company size, and how you've adapted in each space?
Yeah, sure. So I started out my career in project management, very, very heavily in project management. I didn't have any consideration into going product because at the time it was quite a new thing. I didn't really know about it. Kind of fell into it almost. And that was when I was working at British Gas. So British Gas, a massive organization, was starting up. It basically an enterprise-backed startup within the group, a place called Connected Homes, which people would know in the UK as Hive. And so really there was an opportunity to just put my hand up for something I didn't really know what I was going for, and use the project management skills in delivering something. And then it was getting into that I really learned about bringing the customer voice in and understanding the customer problems, etc. From there, I moved from the energy world, where I was developing a smart boiler, so that combination of hardware and software, into a totally different environment, into EdTech. So I moved into a company called TES, much smaller organization. They were private equity owned, so again, different setup entirely, where I was working on both, I'm going to use the phrase B2C and B2B a lot. So if you're not familiar with the phrase, B2C is business to customer. So that's where you're selling direct to consumer. And then B2B is where you're a business selling to a business. So I'd moved from B2C to a combination of B2B and B2C. From there, moved in to Gumtree, which at the time was part of eBay, and eBay known as eBay Classifieds Group. So I was working across a marketplace environment where I was part of a much larger organization and connecting to those other countries. So working across eBay Classifieds Group, where you had the benefit of all the best eBay practices, but you're sort of working more locally. So again, real mix. And then move from there into a really tiny company, where private equity owned again, in energy and telecoms comparison. So real change in spaces. And then from there, I'm currently in the Charlotte Tilbury offices. So that's totally different again, £1 billion business, B2C, with a really strong founder-owned brand. And I've also helped other companies in different phases and backgrounds as well.
Amazing. And it's very common, I guess, for, as you said, people to fall into product, and now it's becoming even more so knowledgeable for people starting out and people being aware of it as a career option. But there's still many that find themselves in exactly the same situation. And this is where the skills can be enhanced and a career can be accelerated through that. John, you've actually changed careers as well. Can you take us through your work background and speak to how you found the transition into the product environment at DocuSign?
Yeah, definitely. A little bit like Pippa, I actually fell into a product management role based on the skills that I accumulated over the time. So I started off my career actually as a software developer in Australia, working for a company called WiseTech Global. So that was a really small company that grew very quickly. So quite chaotic Scrum processes on delivering code. I then shifted over and got to do a short stint in the Australian Securities and Investments Commission. So that's the government, the regulator of the Australian companies. So I got to see heavy processes, how regulations work, and got to really understand large-scale software solutions, especially in a regulated industry. I then moved in to consulting in the financial industry based on my previous experiences at Accenture. So that's, of course, best in class, big machine, where everything is documented, everything goes smoothly. Where I was implementing KYC solutions for European banks. So I got to work a lot with some of the biggest banks in France. Unfortunately, I can't mention them all, but yeah. And after my experience as a consultant, where I was really a business analyst and an engineer, so I got to understand the customer need, then got to design the solution myself with the team and code it. Those skills kind of fit perfectly for a position that was opened up at DocuSign in France, where I got to jump in. And in terms of my experience as a product manager and the context in which I was working, I initially joined a branch of DocuSign, which is called DocuSign International. So we were a very small team, reporting directly to a vice president of product, specifically in France. So it was really, even though it was an organization of 5,000 people, we were really a focus group solving European problems. So one thing I say, in the smaller organizations, it's often a lot more chaotic, and probably about 1.5 years into my experience at DocuSign, we merged with the DocuSign Inc., where I got to be exposed to an organization of about 5,000, 6,000 people, where you really learned about the big processes and the moving machine. So yeah.
Fascinating, and such a variety of not only locations, but sectors and industries as well. Looking forward to diving even deeper into your experience as well. Thank you. Tracy, as a career coach, you've seen many product managers transition between work environments. What advice can you give to product managers looking to transition, for example, from a startup to a large corporation or vice versa? And what skills or mindset shifts are crucial for success in such transitions?
Yeah, I think that mindset that you mentioned at the end there is absolutely critical when you make any sort of change, whether it's changing sector, changing type of organization, changing job role. It's having a growth mindset where you don't see the challenges as hurdles, you see the challenges as opportunities for you to grow into the role. So I think it's that growth mindset, definitely. It's about doing your homework, understanding that there are going to be differences, reflecting before you start on how you can adapt your behavior, the way you do things to the different environments. And I think it's also about realizing that when you make changes, you don't have to be perfect. You're not going to go in the role and know everything. Even people who've been doing the role for a while don't know everything. So it's okay to ask questions. It's okay to make the odd mistake. And, to help your confidence, make sure you celebrate those successes when you start something new. You're acknowledging what you are doing rather than focusing on maybe the 1 or 2 tweaks that you need to make.
Isn't that great? Pausing to celebrate one's achievement of a goal or outcome or strategy in making change. That's fantastic. Just before we move on to another topic, I just thought I'd mention the questions are going to come through thick and fast, which is absolutely brilliant. I did forget to mention, please take a moment to upvote the ones that you'd like answered, and we'll certainly try and get to the most popular ones quickly. It might be a challenge for us to get to all questions with such a large audience, but we do appreciate that. So please pop your questions for the audience, for the panel, in the Q&A, and we'll use the chat to drop the links to different things and offers that we're going to provide. Navigating industry-specific challenges. Throughout all of your answers there, you've highlighted the role of product manager varies across many different contexts. A question for you, John. DocuSign recently posed a business challenge for our PM Learner cohort. We have real industry projects in the program, with whom you collaborated closely during the employer project. Can you touch on the industry-specific challenges product managers encounter in the tech sector specifically, and how these learners handled it? I've got a second part to that as well, but can you touch on those industry-specific challenges?
Definitely, of course. So we did work on a project where we gave the learners the opportunity to look into our KBA business in America, which is knowledge-based authentication, which is used a lot by credit unions and banks to authenticate individuals before doing high-value transactions or even changing their personal information. And it's quite a clunky old type of authentication solution, because it asks you questions about your past and your public record. So there are possibilities of fraud if someone's able to get your public record. And it's a solution where people may forget what color their car was 20 years ago. So we were really asking the learners to have a look at one, user experience, but two as well, tech in the financial services really heavily compliance-based. So it's not only looking at whether or not you're delivering a great user experience, it's also looking at a holistic view. And this is what the learners got to do on the project, was to see, okay, are we delivering a solution that we can sell to a compliance team at a bank, that they feel comfortable to implement this, and they feel that that's allowing them to mitigate the risk in their transactions? And two, is it a user experience that a consumer wants to go through? So that's one of the biggest challenges in the tech industry, is really solving the B2B2C. So as Pippa said, we talk about B2C and B2B, but what DocuSign does often is selling software to businesses to enable them to do their B2C transactions. So we call that B2B2C. So yeah, you have to make sure that when you're delivering a solution, that you're ensuring not only the compliance team is happy, but also the business team is happy. So those are the people who are your champions within those organizations, and you're giving them all the information that they need to sell the product internally as well. So that was some of the things that our learners touched upon when they delivered this project.
What a great experience for learners to get their hands on a real challenge such as that. That's fantastic. Thank you for the insight there. Pippa, you've had experience in e-commerce, as you mentioned, with Gumtree, eBay, and in the beauty industry with Charlotte Tilbury. Can you share insights into the unique challenges product managers face in these industries and the skills that may vary from one to the other?
Yeah, sure. So in Charlotte Tilbury, it's a really interesting problem to solve, which is Charlotte Tilbury, if you're not familiar with the brand, sell beauty and skincare products. And they have a really strong brand, and people are used to going into a store or a department store and purchasing these physical products. And if you have never bought makeup, you want to make sure it works well on your skin tone, how the colors really look. People often want to sort of feel the packaging. So it's about, how do you give someone that level of confidence to purchase products, but to do it online, where they're not actually going to physically touch anything? So how do you get them to have the confidence that the foundation they're going to buy is going to be the right color for them? So some brilliant work the team have done here over the past few weeks and past few years is really stuff around shade matching. So how do you look at it online and then either do a sort of a virtual try on where they scan your face and then it suggests the colors, or you can put in things like, oh, I currently wear Chanel beige, and then it'll go, oh, Chanel beige of this foundation equals this color match for this Charlotte Tilbury foundation. So some really clever things that they've done and had to do. Bear in mind, I think the pandemic really accelerated a lot of these sorts of problems to solve very quickly. So they've done loads of work there. If we move more into the space for Gumtree, eBay, marketplaces, the area I was working on particularly was the job board section. So you've got companies posting jobs on Gumtree, like looking for Uber drivers or logistics people or chefs. So roles like that. And then you've got an individual posting for a nanny role. So you've got a real range of things that are being posted there, and you've got to look to, how do I accommodate the tool for that B2B section, so that business to business section where they're getting a professional experience, the direct person who's trying to sell something, and then all the people who are going to apply for the job. So there's a real, you're really focusing on a balancing act of which problems are you solving where, because you have to engage those job applicants to then encourage people to post on your platform. So it then becomes a flywheel effect, and that's a different problem to solve once again. So you can have a whole range of different problems in the e-commerce space.
I find that fascinating, and it's been amazing to witness so many physical products in their digital transformation. And we've got many learners that are going through that and upskilling for that purpose. I mean, if you think of many physical products now, there's such a digital element to them, be they, cans of soft drink have a QR code and all those sorts of things. Now it's almost inescapable. But Tracy, do you find common industry specific challenges that you've observed in your coaching, and how product managers proactively address those challenges to excel in their roles?
Yeah, I think with any sector that you're moving into, I think it's really important to immerse yourself in that environment, to understand the language, so that when you go into that, if you're new into the tech world, that you really do speak the language of the people that you're working with. I think the sector tends to be quite fast paced. I think if there is a lot of change, so think about your attitude to change, your attitude to working in a dynamic environment, as to whether that's going to be something that is suitable for you. I think the other thing that tech companies are looking for is curiosity. The understanding, obviously, of the customer, that's the nature of the job, but it's that curiosity, and also the ability to be bold, to be brave, to think of those innovative ideas that I think really help in the tech world.
I love that, bold and brave. I'm going to jot that down for a learning outcome for the audience. But through curiosity, I think that is really pivotal, especially in the changing environments in which many people work, as you mentioned. Moving on to the next one, and just a reminder, I can see some questions coming through the chat function. I'm going to use the Q&A function to address the questions that are coming through thick and fast, and I'm really excited to get to many of them as well. I thought we would also select or have a discussion regarding the ideal context. So changing careers or starting a new role or environment can be daunting. How does one select ideal context that gives or aligns with one's unique preferences, skills, aspirations, but also, I guess, you've got to consider values in a way. I'll open it up for the audience, but what factors should product managers consider when selecting the ideal work context that aligns with those things? Who would like to go first?
I can jump in first if you like, Pippa.
Yeah, go.
Definitely in the tech industry, I've had a list of criteria to say, does this job context and this work context as a product manager work for me? One of the first things as a product manager in the tech industry is to figure out whether you want to be in a startup, in a medium enterprise, or in a big SaaS company, so software as a service company who services thousands of customers. So all of them have their own advantages and disadvantages. I think if you really like chaos and want to drive things quickly, startup environments and scale-ups are a great idea. But if you are a lot more structured and you need that framework, especially if you need something to understand, oh, I can grow and you can gain insights from big organizations, I think the bigger SaaS companies would definitely be a great fit. One of the other aspects that I had to learn is to figure out whether or not you want to be mostly in person or be completely remote in tech companies. So I had the odd experience of starting off my product management career in COVID, where I had to do a lot of personal building with people remotely, and that was very challenging. So one of the biggest aspects is to figure out whether or not you're ready or not to start fully remote, or whether you would want to start in person with a product team and a sales team that whether you can go out for drinks or go have lunch and really gain that personal interaction. The other aspect that I had was also knowing whether or not you want to be in the SaaS industry, so just selling software, or also have a physical aspect to the products. So I've only ever worked in the SaaS industry, and I'm very passionate about software. I think that's a lot more scalable than physical products. So yeah, it's also just your perception on that. Let me hand it over to Pippa.
So taking a slightly different approach as not to overlap, I think the first place, and I'm glad you said it, Dan, which is values. So understanding who you are first is going to really help with guiding you and what you're going to like and get out of it. So maybe a first question to ask yourself is, why do I want to get into product in the first place? And then what do I care about? What do I care most about, what makes me feel good, what brings the best out of me. So exploring your values is a really good start. Another thing to think about is if you're stepping into your first product role, you are putting yourself in a very big learning environment. You are going to have to learn really fast. And what that means is you're going to feel quite vulnerable because you are going to make mistakes, you're going to get things wrong. And so what I would also think about is, what are your current strengths, so that in a location where you might be feeling like all of this is new and I don't know what I'm doing, you've got some comfort in the fact that I do know I can do some things really well. And when I am coaching more junior people, I always help them remember that they're not walking straight into this off like from a different planet. They've actually got life skills and experience that they can draw on to use here. So sort of leaning on your strengths and recognizing what your strengths are, I think helps. And then also there's a part of me that thinks it kind of doesn't matter where you start, because your career is going to be so long. You've got so many opportunities to move around. So see it, and I've talked about this before, which is if you see it as a patchwork quilt, that this first role is just a patch in that whole quilt. So it's a first step. You choose what you take from it, try and decide what you want to learn from this first experience, and sort of throw yourself into it. And then lastly, as you're going through that interview process, really get a sense for the leader you're going to be working for, be that your direct manager or the company leader. Because again, when you're in that vulnerable position of learning, you want someone who is going to support that learning and recognize that some stuff you're going to pick up really fast, some stuff you're going to struggle with. And so you want someone who recognizes the values that you bring, regardless of the skill set you've got tons of experience in. So that would be my answer.
That is brilliant insight. Thank you. A few things I'll probably circle back there to as well. Tracy, keeping on that theme, are there any key questions that one should ask or research they could do when making such a decision as well?
I mean, I want to echo Pippa's thoughts there. You know, it starts with understanding you. It starts with looking in at your strengths and skills, but also what you enjoy doing. I think sometimes people fall into things because they're good at them, but actually they don't really enjoy them. So, you know, I get people to work out what their strengths and skills, and there's always more there than people realise. And when I first speak to learners, they give me a list of 3 or 4 things that they're good at, and then by the time we finish, there's a really big long list that we can then sort of pull into their branding. But it's pulling out the things that you can do but you love, or that you want to do more of. So it's that understanding yourself. And as also Pippa said, it's about what drives you, what gets you out of bed in the morning. Is it autonomy? Is it challenge? Is it team? You know, what's the thing that drives you most? Because that's what you want to get in your career. And I think it's so it's strengths and skills, it's values, it's drivers, and then it's exploring the options that you've got available to you. As John said, there's a big difference between a startup and a large corporate, and there's plenty in the middle. Where do you think you'll fit best for now? You know, lots of people say, you know, I'd like to go to a large organization because I'll be with other product managers, I'll be learning from them, and then I might move into a smaller organization. Other people say, do you know what, I want to be thrown in the deep end in a startup. I'm going to learn really quickly, and I'm going to get a broader range of understanding the business as well. So it's back to, you know, understand yourself first, and then that means you will make, you know, much better decisions as to what the best steps are for you next.
That's fantastic. And we're going to get to the audience questions as quickly as possible. I just wanted to touch on one thing also that John mentioned. We need to be considerate of those that are choosing a remote location as opposed to a physical. And what I found in managing a team globally is the change in the informal opportunity of leadership and that informal transfer of knowledge that occurs in person. You know, the pat on the back where someone's doing well, or the pick up on a spiel, or whatever it may be. John, I guess if I can throw you a question regarding that, are there any tips that you would give the audience for bridging that gap when choosing a remote location to expedite their learning?
One of the things that I found useful was being very, very, let's say, focused on making sure I found the time, even in a remote context, to just set up coffee pauses with people. So it's very, because I live in France with the French team, that's how they informally connect. It's around the coffee machine. So it was really making sure that I set up that time. I was very disciplined with setting up, just getting to know people individually and forming relationships with the engineering manager, with the sales people, with all the stakeholders that a product manager has to interact with. One of the biggest, I think, challenges remotely is creating that empathy and being able to empathize with them. So yeah, just being disciplined on remote practices and finding the time.
So important, having that empathetic approach. I'm going to ask you all to wrap up the panel discussion first, but then get to the audience questions, of which there's many. We thank everyone for their questions ahead of time. What advice would you give to aspiring product managers who are early in their careers and may not yet have a clear picture of their ideal work context yet? I think we've covered that with I love the quilt scenario, but Tracy, any other tips that you'd like to provide the audience in that context or for their context?
I would encourage career starters to really talk to people, things like this, go onto LinkedIn, approach people. People love to help. Ask them what it's like to be a product manager. If you're thinking of a particular sector, particular type of organization, or the organization themselves. So explore. There's so many possibilities out there when you're starting. It can be a bit overwhelming, but I encourage you to make those real. Dig deeper, find out more about them, as well as all the stuff I've said about learning about yourself. And also think about what success looks like for you. When you're starting out, it's 5 years' time might seem a long way away, but Pippa said you've got a lot more ahead of you in terms of work. But it's 5 years. What does success look like? 10 years? Can you think that far in advance, so that whatever step you take now takes you towards your definition of success, and that will be different for all.
Thank you, and that's great advice. Also for the panel, not everyone's looking to commence their career. There's many looking to advance their existing career in product. Any advice for those? I mean, making a decision such as to attend today and certainly register for the additional masterclass that Pippa's offering is a step to arm yourself with more information to make positive steps towards career acceleration. But for those looking to advance their careers, is there any advice from the panel as well?
So I'll jump in on that one. So if you're already in a product role and you're looking at how do I advance, and I think Tracy, like you were saying, that sort of thinking 5 years ahead, it doesn't mean you have to do that thing, but in the process of going there, it's going to open up opportunities. But if you're in a role and you want to progress and maybe you're not 100% clear on what that direction is, I would really recommend just looking at the next level of job descriptions that are out there and have a look at them, and without being overly critical of yourself, see where there's where there's something that you perhaps wouldn't feel hugely confident about talking about, and then looking at, is there something in my current role where I can build that muscle to talk about it, and how would I do that? Is that starting up a bit of a lunchtime community where we share our learnings, and then I can talk about that? Is it about, is there a public speaking element to it? Is it more to do with connecting with the customer? So there's lots of things you can do there. And then the other side of it is networking. I can't emphasize enough how important it is to go to events, either virtual or in person, and start connecting using LinkedIn, whatever it might be, to start having the odd coffee with someone. Again, it doesn't have to be I'm after this person for something. It could be I just would love to learn what it's like to be there. and then understand what your story is that you can share with them, because I can't tell you that even if I take the past year, the opportunities that have come up for me based on coffees, side conversations I've had, that I never would have thought would have led to something else. So this is a conversation with someone who's remembered me when talking to someone else, and then that person reaches out, and then a new opportunity arises. So don't underestimate that power of talking to people and connecting with people, because it really, that's the underpinning of all this. It kind of doesn't matter how great your product skills are. If you don't connect with people, you're not going to get those opportunities. So I really suggest doing that. Quite passionate about that one.
Yeah,
That's excellent. Identifying the gaps, strategizing how to fill them, broadening your network, and leveling up, reading, as you said, what's involved and going through that process of identifying how to get there. We've got many career advances in the course that also enables that. Let's get to the questions, of which there's many, so forgive me if we can't get to them all. We'll try and condense some that are similar, so I'm going to work my way through them. We are going to address the age-old question first. What's the difference between product manager and product owner? We always get it. Who, John or Pippa, who would like to address that one?
I think we may have different answers, but we'll give it a go, because I think there's so much gray zone. In the tech industry, for example, the role that I do, I also wear the hat of a product owner. So many companies in tech, when you're applying for a product management role, you're also assuming that the responsibilities of a product owner. My understanding of the gaps is really just focusing on cutting up product discovery and product delivery. I've always found that the product owner is the one who needs to make sure that the product's being delivered on time. So that's looking at creating tickets in Jira, talking with the developers, creating the acceptance criteria, and making sure that the delivery is right. Whereas the product management hat is mostly looking at what do we need to do, where's the market going, and feeding that. But again, I don't like splitting up the roles. I very much like keeping it central, but everybody has their opinion on it. So maybe Pippa, you can give your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I broadly agree with you. I think it is a part of the product manager role in the same way. And I've seen a question already pop up about project management. Project management could be considered as part of, depending on your context, right? So depending on the company, depending on how they see product management, they might expect that part of the role as well, project management, or it might be data analytics, or it could be customer research. These are all sort of facets within that overarching product manager role. And I think it's difficult to just put a blanket answer on, because there are companies who would say, this is a product manager role, and actually the reality is it's a product owner role. So I wouldn't get too caught up in titles. I would look at the breakdown of the roles and responsibilities. Product owner roles are great as a first step if you want to get in and you want to get close to that, the engineering team, and really understand how to break down those problems. Product manager is that sort of broader view where you're looking more strategically about what the customer problems are and how you're looking at opportunities, and then how you bring that into, like John said, that product discovery to delivery space.
Fantastic. There's a few questions that I'm going to condense, but basically I'm taking Francesca's example. Thank you, everyone, for the questions. Keep them coming. We'll get to as many as we can. But transitioning from physical products to software products have been quite challenging because the products are quite different. How do you handle such transition and show potential hiring managers that you're able to deliver equally in a software-driven product environment? I guess I'll give that one to John.
Yeah, I honestly haven't had a physical product. I've only ever worked in the SaaS industry, but of course, DocuSign replaced pen and paper. So I suppose the sales pitch wasn't too difficult, but maybe Pippa, you have an example that you could.
Yeah, I think with so I mean, I've worked on what has been a physical product and has had software. So that was the boiler example. But actually, I've coached people who've come from the fashion industry or sort of building bikes or whatever it might be, coming into this space. And I think this is where that values piece comes in. So when I talk about product managers and when I'm hiring product managers, I'm looking for that curiosity that Tracy mentioned before. I'm looking for people who are really good at collaborating, people who can demonstrate creativity. And when I talk about creativity, not just sitting in a room and thinking up all these wonderful things, but actually being creative enough to think beyond the first obvious solution that comes to mind, and really sort of work with people to think of new ways of solving problems, and learning. Like you're going to have to learn. You're going to have to put yourself, like I said, in those sort of vulnerable learning positions. So if you can demonstrate that. The other thing with physical products is you are solving a customer need. You're solving if you're not familiar with the jobs to be done framework, I really recommend having a look at that, especially if you've been working on physical products and looking at that transition, because the jobs to be done framework is basically thinking from a customer point of view, what are they trying to achieve? Now, if you're currently designing bikes, your job to be done might be from getting from A to B. And then if you're moving that onto digital, there's still a job to be done there. So if you think about Lime bikes, for example, I don't know, I recognize there are people from not in the UK, Lime or any sort of pay-as-you-go bike, there's a digital element of, oh, this is a person that needs to go from A to B. What other things do they need to consider? Well, they need to do something quickly. They don't want to get their clothes messy. You know, you can think about all of these things and translate those into digital solutions. So what I'd recommend is sort of looking at jobs to be done, thinking about those values, going back to what are all the skills you need to use in your current role, and then look at some of those job descriptions and talk to digital product managers and say, how might this translate into a transferable skill?
Fantastic. Let's get through a few more. I'm going to again condense some. People are asking, how much of a technical background is required to make a transition into product? And I might start in two parts. Tracy, I might get you to give some examples, or not specific examples, but the learners you're coaching in the Career Accelerator at the moment. There's many that don't have a technical background at all. And then John, I might come to yourself as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And Pippa alluded earlier to there is a massive difference in, if you put the job title of product manager in, there's a gazillion different flavors, and some will need technical skills and some won't. So I think it's understanding yourself, as I said before, but it's and working out where you think you'll fit best. I also think, just sort of going back a little bit to the last question, I encourage anyone that's changing what they're doing, whether it's a major change, complete career change, or whether it's changing sector or changing type of company, to, rather than think about what you don't have because you've come from a different background, so you know, may not have taken the same path as others, think about what you've got. Embrace your difference, because what you're doing is you're bringing a different perspective into that team because of the unique background that you have. So it's, you know, rather than sort of dwell on, oh, I haven't got this yet, I haven't got that, think about, no, but I bring these transferable skills and I bring this approach, you know, let me share my knowledge with this team. And it's amazing how well that lands. So when I'm helping learners put their branding together, it's not hiding from what they were, it's using the best bits, the relevant bits, and promoting those into the job that they really want. I think I answered.
That's a great answer.
Yeah, I can add to what Tracy said. I'll give you a real life example. Actually, at DocuSign, I work with hundreds of product managers who all have different career backgrounds. So even in my own team, there are product managers who started off as engineers, others who started off as subject matter experts on a specific use case. others who start off as salespeople but were passionate about technology. So I really think it's more about, as Tracy said, I won't beat the same drum. It's really the desire to learn the skills. And most of the skills that I think I use and are most critical as a product manager are those transferable skills. So it's the ability to communicate, to manage yourself, and to lead. So there's a lot of leadership skills that are necessary. Again, you don't have to be a leader, but it's just if you have the desire to learn about it, then you'll pick up those skills as you're going. So yeah.
Agreed, and thank you, Maria. With your specific scenario in the question, I'll let those answers from the audience highlight exactly what you could do in that regard, highlighting the transferable skills of what is possible in that context that you've mentioned in the Q&A as well. Just mindful of time, we're going to get through some more if we can. Someone's asked also, it's actually another Maria, in terms of qualifications, what does one need to be a product manager? Do product managers look for other further accredited certification? There's some course related questions that I'm going to host specifically, but I thought I would raise that for the panel. Is it something when recruiting PMs that you're looking for or not?
I'll jump in if that's all right, Beth. So I think the product management role is still quite young. So when I got into
We've lost Pippa, I think, for momentarily. I might see if Tracy or John can jump in quickly with that one.
Yeah, I can, maybe Tracy and I can go in. To be honest, when I've been involved in the recruiting process for other product managers, we haven't really looked for specific skill sets or accreditations. I think it's really, again, just the ability to want to learn. Of course, if you are applying for a product manager role in the tech industry, having some knowledge about software is definitely a plus. But if you've had a program management role in a completely different industry, then that again is can be okay as long as you demonstrate that the desire to want to learn about the industry that you're in.
I think that it's a slightly different bias with me because obviously the individuals that I'm working with are working towards an accreditation, so they do have that understanding, that deep understanding of what the role is and what's involved. So it's difficult for me to say because sort of they start almost from a head start because they have that background. I know that traditionally, as I think Pippa and John have said, I think they both said they fell into product management, and I think typically that has been the route, but I think that's changing as the role is now becoming more of a recognised role, and I think qualifications are going to become more important as the role establishes itself as a career path.
Fantastic. Welcome back, Pippa. We'll move on to the next one. We've navigated a few responses to that specific question, and just a reminder before we do run out of time, and I will circle back to this, we will have links to both Pippa's masterclass. We will have links to the course brochure, but I will make myself available for anyone that wants to stick around after the panel discussion for more course related information, criteria, application processes, and things like that. How closely does product work with marketing in your experience? It's quite a generic question, and I guess it's more about stakeholder management as a whole, from developers right through to sales and marketing. But in terms of that transferable skill, I'll frame that question a little bit differently. The interdepartmental stakeholder management as a skill. Can anyone give some insight into how one might frame that as a transferable skill from other backgrounds? I know someone in the audience has mentioned teaching, and we've had teachers, Tracy, do the program. Are there any other ways and means in which people can identify and highlight those transferable skills for hopefully positive outcome?
I think we've had a few transferable skills mentioned already, in terms of, as you say, stakeholder management. That relationship building is really, really important. Collaboration, problem solving, creativity. That's the sort of ones from the top of my head in terms of transferable skills to be thinking about when you're promoting yourself as a product manager.
Exactly.
Yeah. Hi again. Sorry about dropping off. I can just add to what Tracy said. I also would say the heart of product management is really understanding your customer. So any role where you've had to be empathetic to someone, so in teaching, you're empathetic to your student. In marketing, you've also got to be empathetic to the customer and understand who your customer is. So anything that's really joining back who you're working with, or having to be empathetic and understanding what somebody else's problem is and how you might alleviate that, that all is really good stuff to talk about.
Last question, before we get to some calls to action and some really good offers for the audience. I think I've got this one. How do you manage new technologies such as AI where you may not have the knowledge of the topic? I guess I might broaden that out a bit to how do you adapt to new technologies in a product manager role? John first, if that's okay.
Yeah, I may bring up what we mentioned about the jobs to be done framework, because the technology is always changing and you really just need to see what is the core job that needs to be done. I think one of the use cases is getting from A to B. We started with paper maps, then we moved to maps on phones. We don't know whether or not there'll be new technologies to be done, but the real core job that you're trying to solve is get somebody from point A to point B. So as long as you're focusing on that, you need to be open, I suppose, in the tech industry to understanding and getting ideas from engineers who usually have these innovative ideas because they're always on the edge. So it's always listening out to other stakeholders and making sure that when you're trying to sell a successful product that you are open to the new technologies and not fixed to a solution. So, yeah.
Fantastic. We're heading toward the end and there's a few questions that we haven't been able to get to. We will not only provide an overview, a recording of the event. So please, everyone, check your inboxes as soon as tomorrow. We'll put this up on YouTube as well. But before we do go, I just thought I'd invite each of you, commencing with Pippa, is there any final tips that we haven't, or anything that we haven't covered that you feel may be of value for the audience when considering an advancement of one's career, a commencement of one's career, or a change of one's career?
Oh, you made me go first.
Happy to shuffle it up if Tracy would prefer.
No, it's fine. So I think it's just a recap of what we've pretty much covered. Yeah. So I think know yourself, look at your values, and I did see someone ask, how do I do that? So what I use for myself and when I'm coaching other people is Brene Brown. She's got a huge worksheet on how to examine your own values. There are plenty of others, but that's just one I look at. So examine yourself and what you care about. Look at where you are today, what skills you have, and then what's the sort of nearest neighbor that you can start learning around, that you could start demonstrating with, that you can play about with, either in your current role, outside your role, whatever it may be. So looking to sort of bit by bit, take a bit by bit approach of how you build your skill set. Then there's the people side, so network in your organization, outside your organization, and really just demonstrate how you can get things done. That would be my advice for whichever level you're at.
Brilliant summation. Thank you. John, any final tips for the audience?
Yeah, I'd double click on the people focused one, which is really contacting and networking with those who have been successful at the career that you want to do. So what I've done is also contacted people. I know that not everybody can just go contact Tim Cook or CEOs. They're not that accessible, but start with your local network and try and really discuss with those people who have succeeded in what you would like to do and get tips from them, and of course that helps. So yeah.
Fantastic. Tracy, over for a final tip from yourself.
Actually, John just reminded me, one thing we haven't mentioned is find a mentor. Find somebody who's already doing, who's where you would like to be in that 5-10 years time. It's amazing how helpful people are. Senior people who've been successful love to help others have the career that they've enjoyed. So reach out to mentors. I think, in summary for me, it's understanding your brand. So what you're good at, why you want to do something, so your values and your drivers, and be able to articulate that. And that's the key point. It's no good just you having it on sheets of paper. You need to be able to express that. So when you reach out to your networks, you've got a very clear message. And reiterate what Pippa and John said, network, really, really important. Not just when you're changing your career, just as Pippa mentioned earlier, as part of your normal working week. And then the most successful people are the ones that are good at the networking.
Isn't that fantastic? Before I say thank you to all, we are at time. I am going to stick around for anyone that is interested in learning more about the value of the content that is offered in the program, but also even discuss the value in the coaching element of the Career Accelerator. Just a reminder that everyone will receive an option to provide feedback on today's event. More importantly, you've got the option of registering also for Pippa's additional masterclass, which is going to provide fantastic further insights as well. But also there is in the chat function the opportunity of downloading the course brochure, or even booking a time with your enrolment advisor, which I highly recommend. They are very empathetic to your situation, be that a career change. That comes with a need for them to be understanding and empathetic as to the gravity of that decision, and also the investment that you're potentially making in yourself through the program. I would like to say thank you to John, Pippa and Tracy. I will stick around, but it's been an absolute pleasure, and your time has been truly valued by not only myself, but I'm sure the audience in its entirety, of which there's been many. We thank you, the audience, as well. Thank you, guys. I'll stick around.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Best of luck, everyone.